Right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Inside the Vault. I'm your host today. My name's Tracy Wilson, and I am joined by the fantastic Wes York. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Wes. I've decided that, let me tell you firstly about what is Inside the Vault all about. So firstly, it is about helping consultants and coaches be the best possible coach and or consultant that they can possibly be. So this is the place to be if that's something that you want to achieve. You're wanting to be successful in your field. So today's topic is about sales, because as we know, with any business, if you are not good at sales, your business can go down a very fast path of failure. So becoming really, really good at this, and I'm going to say, like it or not, you must get very, very good at this, or teach your team to become very good at this. So clearly, that's what we're going to be talking about today, and we don't want to do it with any sleaze, because nobody wants to do that, right? So that being said, let me introduce you to our guest this morning. So to the right of my screen, I have Wes York. And I want to tell you a little bit about Wes. So Wes is an author, an international sales coach, and he actually founded a program called Sales for Life a few years ago. And he did that in the heat of the GFC. I'm going to say at the height of the GFC, he decided to leave a very well-paying sales and marketing job, an executive role, and stepped out into this world of entrepreneurship and being self-employed, and set up his own sales company. And I'll let Wes tell you a little bit more about this a little bit later. But he did that at age 30. Now, he also went on to spend in that business over $500,000 in marketing, and that also helped him in sales and marketing. So by focusing his efforts in those areas meant that he went on in his very first year of business to earn over $500,000 profit. Right? So profit is probably the optimal word here. Now, he has no formal university training. So we would call him a pracademic in my world. No formal sales training or university training as such. He's very much the self-taught entrepreneur, and he now teaches his unique skills and motivational techniques, and they're based on his own experiences in life and in business and the success that he's had. We applaud that. We feel that, people that are actually out there in the trenches doing it are the best people to learn from. So huge big welcome to you, Wes. Welcome to Inside the Vault, and we just cannot wait to hear how to become an elite salesperson without the sleaze.
Thank you very much.
So let's get started. Do you want to sort of give everybody a bit of detail about who you are and maybe anything that I've missed?
Right. Okay. So I actually didn't leave the corporate world. I was made redundant. It's a little bit different because it can change your mindset in a couple of different ways. When people leave it and a paying job to go and open up their own business, they're in that mindset to actually embark on that world. When you're made redundant, your whole world, I guess, gets shaken up pretty quickly. But what I chose to do and why I chose to go on my own was I wanted to control my own destiny. I didn't want anyone to ever be able to say, you're made redundant or you're fired ever again. I wanted to control my income, my working career, but I also wanted to influence others as well to show what can actually be done. What I did though when I opened my first business was I kind of trusted the fact that I could sell, and that's why we did spend over $500,000 just on marketing in our very first year of business. We decided to open up an office in Mooloolaba, which is the third highest commercial leasing street in Australia. To go into business at 30 in your very first year and have over $150,000 in rent plus spend $500,000 a year in marketing, you kind of got to trust the fact that you can sell and bring the revenue in to actually then finish up with $500,000 profit. And it's actually a bit over that, but it's just an easy number to say. So I guess in the first year, some would call it luck. I would call it probably, luck's not the right word, but I had some good fortune at the same time. But not to say we had massive challenges like every other person who opens up businesses, cash flow issues, just like everyone else. So then as time went on, I thought to myself, I need to start to teach people how to sell, because business owners need to know how to sell. So many business owners get into business because of passion. They love, they want to be, they want to open up a gym, a coffee shop, a restaurant, whatever it is, because they're passionate in actually that industry. Yet they've never had any formal selling skills. So that's why a lot of the small businesses go under. So to me, the belief is we need to learn the selling skills before we open the business, because when you get that first client walk in the door or they ring you on the phone, what are you going to do with it? So hence that's sort of why then over the years I've developed the Elite Sales Club and Sales Coach International, which is now regarded as the largest sales coaching company within Australia.
Great. And you did right. I mean, look, my consulting business certainly works in this space, helping business owners understand the 5 key fundamentals of business, right? Yeah. And we see all the time business owners who are extremely passionate about what they do, and they dive, head first into it without really understanding all of the key facets and experience, knowledge, skill that they need to have to actually run that successfully. And I'm going to tell a story, because I heard a story the other day actually from a lady who had a consulting business and looked really, really successful. And one of the things she said to me is that she's actually decided this year that she's changing her direction. And it was quite interesting, because she had a great business, excellent business model. Her problem was she brought on salespeople, and her words to me were they couldn't sell.
Yeah.
So that has actually, so she spent a lot of money getting these people on board. Yeah. Fundamental mistake, hiring salespeople that can't sell. Yeah. And that's led to her having to, really do some reflection and look at the business, and now is in a position where she's having to change tact and pivot very quickly into a different direction, because she could just see it all going south.
And in the meantime, it costs a lot of money.
Correct. So let's talk. We've talked a little bit about why sales are critical for business, but I'm sure you've got
Just wait. I'm not sure if you can hear me, but it just froze. There you go. So yours.
More.
Well, if everyone can still hear me, I'm not too sure. And if with the blab, if Tracy goes off, what's happened? Maybe can someone put in the questions if they can actually hear myself, and if Tracy just went off, because I'll just start explaining some sales strategies, etc. So can someone who's on, maybe I can see Darren's on, Liz or Anton, just put in a question to say that they can hear me, and maybe Tracy's gone off, because Tracy's gone off here for some reason. So can someone just put in a question just to say that they can still hear me, and then I'll just start explaining some sales strategies. So Liz has asked a question: do you think it takes a certain type of personality to exceed in sales? Great question, Liz. To me, the sales has a process, and every single person can learn the process. What the challenge to me, Liz, I feel a lot of people think that sales is actually quite a dirty word, and a lot of people. Sorry, Tracy, if you're there, we've just sort of started going on some questions here.
No worries.
So people think the sales is actually quite sleazy, and I think that's why Tracy put that as a title. And a lot of people think that sales is difficult, and sales is going to just try and rip people off their money, Liz. So a lot of people then won't choose to actually learn then the fundamentals and the process of selling. So the answer to yourself is yes, anyone can learn the process. Now, is someone going to be great compared to someone else? Well, no, it's like being a doctor or a butcher. Some people have, a special skill set which makes them better. but everyone can understand the fundamentals and actually know what the process is, which is going to make them better than the average person who hasn't actually learnt that process. So, Liz, to me, absolutely, I think everyone can learn that process. And if you're in business, you have to learn that process, because when you look at business and you look at things like average transaction size, you look at the different types of clients you want to attract, you look at things such as loyalty within your clients. That all comes back to your selling process and your marketing process.
Absolutely. And I think, Liz, you may have covered off this question here, Wes, but she said, do you think it takes a certain type of personality to exceed in sales?
Yeah, that was the question we were just going through then, Tracy, when you went off there, so we could keep it all going.
Right.
But, so that was just what I was finishing up there.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant.
Yeah.
So, and I think I've missed this piece too, where you were talking about is sales hard to learn?
Sales isn't hard to learn. Every sales coach has an 8-step, a 10-step, a 6-step. But it all comes back to be reasonably the same. I guess from my perspective, compared to other sales coaches, is I've done it through my own hard yards. I still own my own organisations. So when I teach someone, it's actually it's not textbook. There's not some big glamorous words to say, okay, this is what we do to get this result. And we go through the fundamentals in each sales process. So I've sort of developed my own process to make it easy. So in a lot of cases, when I've taught people how to sell, they've actually come back and said, it's a whole lot easier than I thought it was actually going to be, because I've actually learned the way to teach it in a simple process, which I guess people get paid to simplify things. I guess that's what most people, the rich people, have done in life. But it's not a hard process to learn, no.
And would you say that, that whole sales process, like you were talking then about there not being sort of a one-size-fits-all, that it's not script based necessarily, but there may be a framework that one follows. But do you feel that it's really important for somebody to put their own flavour and personality into the process? And how do you go about doing that?
You got to use your own personality in absolutely anything. If you're going to go and open up an ice cream shop, you have to have your personality to put yourself apart from everyone else anyway. And sales is exactly the same. We've all met salespeople. Some people are flamboyant. Some people are introverts that can still make a great salesperson. But what it is the connection they get with the person they're talking to, whether it be on the phone, via email, face-to-face. It's that connection you can make. So you've got to have your personality for that.
Great. Well, let's go there, Wes. So let's talk a little bit about, because I think that's extremely important, that connection. And you'll hear, we hear a lot about relationship selling.
Yes.
And it seems really almost disjointed or incongruent when you sort of, people go relationship and selling. Do they really gel together? Let's talk about that.
There's a few questions I can see on the side as well, and I'm going to try and cover that in the same answer here as well, Tracy, because I think it sort of comes together. If you go back about 10 years ago, selling was all about closing the sale. You could actually close quite hard. I think it was a bit easier to generate business 10 years ago, and it was also a bit easier to retain clients 10 years ago. So you could close really hard. And that's where the sleazy type thing came from, like the 70s, if you watch the old movies, even up to 10 years ago, because of that reason, because you could just bang them on their head at the end and get the business. The thing is, what's changed and why relationship selling has become so critical is because there's so much competition out there. You look at the mobile phone, everyone's got one of these, which is like a mini computer. If I want to go and stay at a hotel for a night on the Gold Coast, for example, I can jump on here and have a million choices at my fingertips. So the element of choice is made it really easy with these devices. So therefore, you need to come back to create relationships. So therefore, you can have long-lasting business with that particular client. You then get referral business from that client. You actually have a higher transaction size when you have that relationship. So the sales process has gone from, not having to do much at the start to just close at the end, to really having a great fundamental starting process, which makes the close of the sale really easy. So relationship, because of competition, is absolutely critical when it comes to selling. Now, you want to make sure you retain that client for life. You want to make sure that client becomes your best sales agent. When you do the right thing with your client, they're the ones who just word of mouth, they're a sales agent. You don't have to pay for them, and they're bringing in referrals. They're telling clients to come and see you all the time. They're like your raving fans. So when you do your selling process right, that's what happens at the back end of it all.
And what do you think is the most, so, if we, again, going back to sort of that relationship and building a connection, how does one go about doing that? And what's the most important piece of that puzzle?
Can you say that first bit, just cut out that first bit of that question?
Yeah, sure. So in the sales process, we talked about building relationship and connection.
Yes.
How does one go about doing that?
Right, okay. So when you look at relationship selling, I use a terminology called the dominant buying motive. So anytime we're speaking to someone, and the sales process can be 20 seconds long, or it could be 6 months long, depending on what product or service you're selling. But it doesn't matter what you're selling and how long that process is. You've got to find out what is the most critical aspect to that client. What's going to make them change from what they're doing now to purchase your product. And that's what I class as what we call the dominant buying motive, which is what's the most important thing to them. You know, the hardest thing for someone is to change what they're doing now to buy your product and service. So we need to find out what's so integral about them, whether it be their family, whether it's their health, whether they need to change because of the fact that what you offer offers a better solution, whatever it is. But when you find that the dominant buying motive, which really touches their heart, that's when we can start to build that relationship around that to then generate that sale at the back end.
It goes back to that old saying that, we hear often is people hate being sold to, but they actually love to buy.
Yes.
And I think, you've hit the nail on the head in terms of understanding what people's motives are or what their needs are. And then once you can align what your product and or service as being the solution to that,
correct.
It actually takes away, it almost disarms the force in the sale, and it becomes a nice conversational process and a natural thing to happen.
Yeah, well, my process, I actually teach it in a way where, in a lot of cases, the client will actually start to ask, okay, so how do I purchase this today? Can I give you my credit card? So you actually don't even need to ask them to purchase. So my process has been set up from the very start for that outcome. Now, it doesn't happen every time, but I can get that to happen 50% of the time. So they're actually asking me to come on board with me, and that's the process that I actually teach.
So if you were to give our viewers today maybe 3 to 5 things that they could do, because I think this piece is extremely important, is that building a relationship and the connection. And I'm going to ask this from a point of view of it not just being verbal sale, because I think the sales starts. Sure, I'll ask you, where do you feel that the sales process actually starts?
You know what? This topic could be banded around for years. There's not one right answer. To me, in my position, the sale actually starts when I speak to that client, whether it be via phone, via email, via text, via Facebook, whatever it is. And it probably comes back. There's a question, I believe it was, is it Darren? Sorry, Darren asked the question between marketing and sales, and what's the difference? Marketing is when you spend money to generate that lead. So you're either spending money to, have brand awareness, to generate leads, whether it's be by a website, whether it be cold calling, whatever it is. That to me is marketing. Sales is when you get that lead and now I can actually turn that into a client. So I need to email them, text them, phone them, what it is. So to me, sales starts when that lead has come in and I now need to act on it to generate that into business and money into my pocket.
Perfect. Thank you. So I'll go back to the question I was going to ask, which was, can you give our viewers maybe 3 to 5 steps that they could follow? Maybe they could, write these down on it. If you're driving, don't do this. But if you're in an office and you've got a pen and paper in front of you, if they could write down 3 to 5 things or bullet point steps that they could take that will help them to improve their sales process, what would they be?
Yeah, okay. The very first one is, it's the basic principles of selling. However, every single person would have heard it, but a lot of times when I ask this question in a training regime, a lot of people don't understand it. And the first one is the fundamentals of selling, which is people buy an emotion and then they justify it with logic when they finish. However, a lot of times when people sell, they sell very logically. They sell, this cup of water here and it's just a porcelain cup, it's got a handle on it and it's got water in it. And people try and sell along those lines. But that's all logic. Where people buy the fact that, this water is going to stop them dehydrating, it's going to be able to make them go for a run. What's this water going to do for them? So we need to make sure the first fundamental that we do is we sell an emotion. When we actually sell an emotion and what our product and service is going to do for that particular client, we then actually reduce a lot of the objections which we get at the end. Money doesn't become an objection when we sell emotionally, because people always spend more money when they're emotionally involved. They will go home and justify the cost of it through logic, but they've purchased on an emotional base. So we need to make sure that every single person, when they go through their selling process, that they have a lot of emotion attached to what they're selling. So that's probably the first key fundamental. When I go into any organization, we look at that first. Okay, give me a look at your script, give me a look at your process, and I guarantee that 95% is actually logic. And we turn that around to be 95% emotion, and we still got a little bit of logic in that. The second fundamental thing we need to do is we need to spend about 80% of our selling process fact-finding. In a lot of cases, people will start to sell their product or service far too early in the selling process. So to give you an idea, I could be talking to you, Tracy, about sales coaching, and you ask me some questions like, okay, what does your product do? What can it achieve? Things like that. In a lot of cases, I'm never actually going to answer that question just yet. I'm going to start to keep asking you along the lines of, okay, what is it you need? Where's your business going to go? What were your challenges last year? Where's your challenges this year? Because I need to get enough information so when I show you my product, that I actually hit all the points that you need. So the second part is, before we can even go and really find out their dominant buying motive, is start to really create a problem, we need to make sure we have the timing correct with how much time we spend fact-finding. Don't ever bring your product in too early, because once you do that, you've actually just messed up all the steps of the sale. You like making a curry and adding, your chicken in first or whatever, instead of coming in last, so to speak, on however you made the curry to get the best recipe. The third thing is once we've done the fact finding, then we need to make sure we understand what the client's dominant buying motive is, which is what we talked about a little bit earlier. Mm-hmm. When you find out what the dominant buying motive is, we can sell them just about anything. And it doesn't matter if they've got it already. Once we find it, we can start to tailor our service or our product around that. And the last thing is, we need to create a massive problem. If you don't create a massive problem, then the solution that we offer isn't going to be there. So when we start to create a problem, we need to really look at, if they didn't have this, what's their life going to be like? If they continue with what they're doing, what's their life going to be like? We need to create the worst possible scenario ever. So therefore, our solution is going to be the only solution that's going to fix and help that problem.
I'm going to ask a question here. There's something that we've got a few questions in the chat box, actually. Guys, just a reminder, if you want us to display your question on the screen, simply do type your question, but beforehand type /Q and then your question, and then I'll get it on our on my screen here, and I'll be able to pin it and we can answer it for you. But we've got two questions that I think are really good here. So one is, do you suggest highlighting the pain or the solution mostly?
Okay, so great question there. When I sell, let's say, for example, I do an hour presentation on a product or service. I would spend probably about 10 minutes on my product or service, and the rest of the time would be fact-finding and creating that problem. And 10 minutes would be on my solution. In a lot of cases, I actually don't ever need to show my solution. They're ready to purchase without that. So the answer to that question is fact-finding and the problem are the most critical parts. Your solution comes after that.
Right, which leads us to the next thing, because this is a really good question that Liz has posed. Let me pin this one. And she's saying, so on that basis, so we're talking a lot about, exacerbating their pain point.
Yeah.
But how important is it then to have integrity in the sales process? Is intention key? Because this is often where people associate sales with sleaze.
Yeah, great question. It comes back to that relationship part. And it comes back to your own self. Like, I've, in many cases, said no to someone of my product and service. It would have made me money, but I said no because my product or service was never going to suit them. So it comes back to your own internal values. If I sold you, Tracy, something that wasn't going to suit you, you're not going to become one of my raving fans. You're not going to give me great publicity. You're going to sit there on my social media sites and bag me out. And that's where that comes back to it. You'll get salespeople who will say you anything. But they're the ones who go from job to job to job to job. They actually got no money. They're just the ones who, you see at the pub on a Thursday afternoon and they're broke. But you know what? I'd rather be broke with integrity then have that type of line. But it all comes back to when you find out what their dominant buying motive, you know if this product or service that you sell is going to suit them. And then it's up to you on the choice that you make.
So we've covered off, were there more? We've covered off 3 or 4 of the buying motives. Did you have any others on your list and in your toolkit?
Well, I guess when we look at selling, there's some different levels that you need to look at and not get confused around. Negotiating, closing, and overcoming objections are all different parts of selling. And people try and put them all into the same basket. Relationship selling is also another facet of selling, and creating problems or agitating problems, things like that, is another part to selling. So there's different levels of selling, which to me, people then need to go away and then study those little areas. The last thing that people have to learn in business moving forward is how to sell over the phone. I don't know if people know, but there's more mobile devices in the world than human beings, and that was surpassed only a few months ago. I think it's like 7.2 billion mobile devices in the world. So if someone going into business or is in business doesn't know how to sell via the phone, then they better learn very quickly, because these devices are only going to get more and more. So you need to be able to do all this still while you're on the mobile phone. So that's to me is the fastest growing aspect when it comes to selling, is how to use text messages correctly. It's all those things. So you're about to say something?
Hey, I was just going to say, I'm certainly seeing a huge shift in that, where a lot of what I used to do was face-to-face selling.
Yeah.
Where now a lot of what I'm doing, because my audience is global, it's over the phone, it's via Skype, it's through, Facebook Lives, it's on, in chat, all of those sorts of things that we really didn't even associate selling with previously. We always associated the sale with having somebody across the desk from us. And
correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So you make a really good point there, that we need to get with the program, so to speak, and learn that really quickly.
Yeah, and part of my Elite Sales Club, which is what you've got, Tracy, has a whole segment on telephone selling. Cold calling is actually bigger now than what it was 10 years ago, because of the fact that mobile devices are used so readily now. How to actually follow up correctly with a client. They say on average now it takes 36 hours for a client to get back to a strong, warm lead. So now we've got ways and we've got techniques which we can now bring that forward through text messaging. We've got Messenger and things like that. So it means we actually capture that lead and we actually increase our conversions dramatically compared to the competition.
Mm. We've got some other questions coming up. Thanks, guys, and welcome to all our new viewers. I think we've got quite a few of you in the room. Daniel, Pauline, Liz is here, Darren, and quite a number of people just watching in incognito mode, and also Denise. So welcome, guys. If you've got questions, feel free to obviously put them in the live chat, but also equally, if you'd like to join us on screen and you've actually got some questions that you would like to ask myself or Wes, you are more than welcome to join us. So Liz, Wes, another question that Liz has got here, she's got full of questions today, but at what point do you walk away from a sale?
Great question, Liz. It's going to be up to every individual person on when they walk away from a sale. I walk away from a sale when I know I can't help them. If my product or service isn't going to help them, I let them know, and I'm a straight book. I say it how it is, and sometimes people get offended by that because I am pretty direct. But every single person, Liz, is going to be different on when they feel. So it's up to your own intuition on when you know when to walk away. And I can't say there's an exact point. It's up to every individual.
I think one of the will add to that if that's okay, Wes. I think one of the things that I've always done is been very, very clear on what my business values are. What sort of customer do I want to actually be working with?
Yeah.
And so when I'm speaking to somebody, if they don't fit my ideal client profile, then that's my cue to say it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Because if they don't fit, it's likely that the relationship is not going, not that I've ever had this problem, but that it's likely that you won't have a fulfilling relationship somewhere along the way.
It comes back to then your core values of your business, your mission statements of your business, and you just got to go back and say, okay, is this client in line with my values, my mission statement, my ethics, and my core values of my business?
Mm. Absolutely. We've got a comment or a question and a comment here from Darren, and he's saying it's in relation to integrity, and his biggest hate with sales is when he feels condescending questions are being asked. So where you were talking before about, making sure that we ask lots of questions, that we do a lot of fact finding, there would be certain, a technique that you would use to get those questions answered and to ask those questions without them coming across as condescending. Yeah. An example he's given here is, who would like to earn $1 million a year? And he wants to know your views on, I'm just going to show more, your views on how to state the obvious without being condescending.
That question there sounds like it would probably be something said over maybe social media. Like if you're speaking one-on-one with a client, you probably wouldn't ask that question. So let me try and answer that in different ways, because it depends on, I guess, the media outlet you're trying to get across here. So if I was like on social media, on a Facebook page, I'd sometimes ask that question, because some people do respond to that. If you're struggling on that, then I'd be asking questions like, who would like to increase their lifestyle, have more holidays, homes, and start to talk about the emotional feel of what that $1 million could do for them. So you may want to emotionally attach something to the outcome that you're trying to get there, instead of actually putting a dollar figure. It also comes back to I think Darren asked that question. In a lot of cases, when you stipulate money or you stipulate statistics in a selling scenario, you actually do yourself a disservice, because, again, now we've started to talk logically instead of emotionally, kind of what I was just hitting that back there. If we actually associate some emotional feel around it. So if I said to Darren, hey, mate, if I could give you an opportunity and teach you how to sell right, where you can now go and start to take your overseas holidays every year with your family, you could maybe go and purchase those 2 or 3 investment properties and set your lifestyle up. What would your life be like if we could do that? So now I've started to attach some, holidays, some investment properties, and a lifestyle and a dream around the same type of question. And I'm going to get a better response in a lot of cases when I ask those questions. But to me, that there is done on different areas. If I'm going to do a Facebook post to try and get a reaction, then that's not a bad question either, because a lot of people think that $1 million is a lot, which is absolute nothing in this day and age anyway. So
I think I've certainly heard that question asked a lot, but particularly in a speakers type forum. So if you were going, I think they ask that question really to try and get a gauge on who's in the room and take their conversation or their presentation to. So understanding what Darren's saying, your point of, if you were to say that to somebody across the table, they would look at you a bit like you were a bit crackers. So probably not appropriate in that instance.
In a one-on-one selling scenario, no. But even if you're doing it in a group, you can still ask it in a different way and bring it back to an emotional tie. You just got to understand your audience when you're asking that emotional tie. So therefore, you can try and connect with them as a majority.
When we've got a question here too. When do you so we're working on sales, right? So with marketing, we know that there's a lot. In a lot of cases, there's a lot of lead time. With sales, when can you typically start to see results?
So when I do my training, I can see results within about 24 hours. In a lot of cases, especially business owners, they have a fair gauge really on a sales process. However, it comes back to they actually don't know the correct steps and the correct sequences. So I can do a day's training with a business owner or a group, and they will see results the very next day. The challenge is then the continue of it, because a lot of times they'll fall back to their bad habits, and they'll see the results go really well, and they'll drop off because of the fact that they'll go back to their old ways. And I guess that's the human nature, but that's also then why I designed the online sales platform to continue on with the movement moving forward, so they can continue on with that training. But typically in any sales, you'll see results immediately.
And what I think there's also a bigger issue around this, and I'll go back to sort of what we started talking about right at the beginning, and it comes back to people feeling uncomfortable about sales. You know, and in my previous roles, I've been a senior executive in a bank, and a lot of people that joined the banking industry joined as tellers, and I didn't join this place to be a salesperson. I came here for customer service. How do you get somebody, because there's a fundamental mindset shift that needs to occur to get one to actually look at things from a different perspective, look at sales differently. How do you do that to get that sort of result so quickly?
So it comes down to a couple of different areas. The first one is, like, obviously this way we're talking to business owners in general. If you're going to go into business, you need to know how to sell, because you can spend money on websites, internet marketing, yellow pages, TV, right? You spend money on accountants, lawyers, you spend money on absolutely everything. So money's going out. The thing is, how do you capture that money when you get that lead or that client give you a call the first time? You need to know how to sell. See, to me, in a lot of cases, business owners actually have enough leads for them to go quite well. What happens is they don't have the selling fundamentals to actually learn how to get a high average transaction size, how to upsell, side sell, how to then get referrals. So to me, the shift needs to happen when someone decides they're going to go into business, because if they don't ask for the order, then they're just going to be spending this money and they're going to put their family, their houses on the line. It's going to be in jeopardy. So the fundamental shift has to happen from day one when they open that business. If they haven't had that fundamental shift and they're hearing this for the first time, then it needs to happen today, because you're never going to be truly successful in life until you can actually sit there and ask someone for the order, for a check, for a credit card, etc. So it has to happen from the day that they open up the business. The second thing is, and what I'm trying to actually work with a lot of people now, is I'm trying to change the fundamental state of people actually when they leave university. So I'm trying to get into the universities to start to teach them some selling techniques. So when they go to get interviews and they finish their degrees, they can actually go and sell themselves to get their jobs. So I'm actually trying to get that shift even at a younger age.
And that's a really, really interesting point too. In schools, this sort of thing is not taught.
No, not
and like it or not, when you step out of the educational world and you step into the business world and you're looking to, land your first job or start a business, you are selling yourself in that interview. So, you need understanding how to do this is super important. I would even go back further than that. Primary school, as a child, you need to understand how to sell, because every minute of every day you are doing that in some way, shape.
Well, everyone's selling every day. Whether you're networking, you're selling an idea to your partner. Every day, every single person is selling. But what happens? Most people associate selling with money. Whereas I teach people how to, sell themselves in an interview so they get that promotion on that job. I actually, even in some cases, I teach people how to go and purchase a house so they can sell the sales agent so they save themselves $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 on a house, because money coming into your back pocket through savings is still a great result. So I even teach it from the other side, which is I'm the client now. How do I save money? And I've got sales techniques for that type of things as well. So, selling doesn't have to be associated to I'm selling you a product or service. Selling is networking, circle of influences. Selling is everything. We do it every day.
How do you so we talked about sort of getting that customer in the door, and you alluded to this, that having a customer for life, right? And that's absolutely what we want to do, and we want to create advocates and raving fans. What's a key to keeping that customer long term?
So when you find out what their full dominant buying motive is. So for example, I'll use an example like an ice cream shop, because it's quite generic and everyone can kind of relate to it. Everyone turns around and says, well, it's just an ice cream shop. People come in and out. But, you want to make sure that person tells their friends, that tells them that, it's the best ice cream ever. And, you could go to Baskin Robbins, you got Cold Rock, you got all these different types, right? But when you sit there and you can have your young 15-year-old person behind the counter there actually sit there and just have a half-decent conversation. Hey, how's your day? Is this your daughter? What's her name? And actually have some dialogue, and they enjoy that experience. The actual taste of that ice cream is far better because the experience associated with the entire process of that sell. So therefore what happens, they then go and tell their friends how great it was. They come down and that repeat business then continues on. The thing to keep them for life is they've got to keep having that same experience. What happens is that one person leaves who's great, and then they bring someone else on who's very different. They're short. They're just there for the $15 an hour. That person comes back and the experience is very different. That's when they lose that client. So the initial setup has to be continuing all the way through.
Right. So it really comes back to making sure that you've got clear values, a system, a process, and that there is consistency across the board. So it doesn't matter, which salesperson you're dealing with, that the experience is the same 100%. At that very high level.
Well, you look at, like, for example, you don't have to have the best product in the world to be successful. You look at McDonald's as an example. They don't have the best burger by any means, yet they have a system in place which every single person, they know what experience they're going to get every single time they walk in, and it's consistent around the world. So they've got a system which works, and they're very successful, obviously, with the way they do it because of the fact that of the experience that people get.
So I'm going to open up now to ask any other questions. Is anybody listening or want to ask any additional questions of Wes or myself, or would you like to jump in the hot seat? Oh, we do have a question here. Creating a destination. He's making a comment, Darren. Thanks for that. Creating a destination and experience that separates you from your opposition.
Correct. Yeah.
Totally.
Yes. Yeah.
Are there any other key points that you'd like to get across? Is there anything else that we would need to know, particularly as consultants and coaches, that will help us to become better salespeople?
Yeah.
And also not to feel like sleazy.
So that last bit, sorry, I jumped into it.
And also so that we have this nice friendship with sales and not an association with sleaze or that it's bad.
Yeah, the couple of points there. Never say something you can't do, because you get caught out really quickly if you promise and you can't deliver on what you promised there. And I know a lot of coaches, they're speaking to a client and the client's after something and they kind of agree to it. Because they feel they need to agree to that to win that business. If you actually honestly say, look, I can't do that, but I actually have someone else that can do that, that's a better result. You're still going to win the business by doing that because of the fact that you got the honesty, we've got the integrity, which we talked about earlier. But so never promise something which you can't deliver. The second thing is we need to make sure that we're always, so from a selling perspective, we always need to be talking about what it is that we do, which is and how it's going to affect your client. So you don't have to sit there, okay, so my coaching program is going to do this, this, and this. No, your coaching program is going to change this person's life. You may be going to give them more time back to their family. So then we can start to ask questions. Okay, so let's say we get on board with you today, Tracy, and you're now spending 3 more hours with your family and your kids. Your kid's going to be happy with that. So we can start to talk about what the outcome is going to be from their emotional state. I don't have to sit there and say, okay, so we're going to follow these 5 processes, which is integrity, mission, whatever it is, Tracy, and that there is going to get your business back. You're never going to get the business, and you're not going to create the clients you're after by trying to sell in that fashion. And unfortunately, a lot of coaches go along those lines. What you need to tell is what the emotional tie is. So to me, the biggest tip is if you can hit that in your process and get that, you're going to start to win more clients, and you're actually going to have better clients as well.
Absolutely, and it takes you away from that, kind of saying, so what?
Correct.
So what? Yeah. I get all of these things. What does that actually mean for me?
100%. Yeah, and if you can start to incorporate that, you start to set yourself apart from all the other coaches out there, because there are a lot of coaches out there, but you start to set yourself apart because you've actually had to sit down and talk in depth with your client about what their needs and wants are.
Now, Wes, I know that you have some, I've looked at your website and you have some things that you provide people free of charge, some sort of motivational and training stuff. Do you want to tell everybody about that?
So last year I designed, it's been classed as the #1 sales online university in the world. So I actually have a free section in that, which is about 12 videos to get you a bit of a taste on what I do. So people can go to Sales Coaching International and click on the Elite Sales Club and get the free section. We also do, if they click onto and jump on the lead capture, we've got like 6 months worth of tips and motivation, sales strategies. I give a lot out for free because of the fact that I think if I give a lot out for free, the clients that come back to me are bigger clients. They're great clients because they understand also the way that I teach. So therefore, they're already sort of half sold with what I do when they get that lead, when I get that lead from them. So if you go to salescoachinternational.com, there's heaps of free stuff in. There's ebooks. You can go to the Elite Sales Club. You get the free section. You can jump on my Facebook, Wes York. I'm always giving free stuff out there.
Brilliant. Thanks, Wes. We've got a question from Anton here. And he's saying, okay, thanks very much for the effort today. Love our work. Outcome solutions, pain points. First, hit all the emotions. But also, what does a good referral process look like? Great question.
A great referral process is where you look after everyone. So in a lot of cases, you'll go into businesses where the business will only ever look after the new lead. So they might get a lead off Wes, and I give them, Adrian as an example, and they'll look after Adrian to get that new business. A good process is where you also look after Wes, because I'm the one that actually gave that lead. And if I want to give you more leads, if you look after me, I'm happy to keep giving you. And then Adrian will start to give you leads, and the next person will start to give you leads because of the fact that you looked after everyone in that process. A referral lead will close 30 to 40% higher than any other lead. So you got plenty of money within that deal to actually look after every single person. But from a process perspective, you got to look after everyone in it. And most companies do not do that.
I'll give you my example of how I go about doing this. And this has actually been one of the, for my business, that this is one of the ways that I took it to six figures very, very quickly. And it was by setting up strategic partnerships and getting referrals from accountants, lawyers, and what have you. So where Wes is talking about making sure that we look after really the hand that feeds us, so to speak.
Correct.
The person that actually gave us the lead.
Yeah.
So my process would look like when say Wes felt that I did a great job and he wanted to refer Adrian to me. Adrian comes to me, I would have found out where that lead has come from, because most likely Wes will have said to Adrian, tell Tracy that I sent you there.
Yeah.
Right? So I always make sure I ask anybody that's going to refer to me, let your client know to tell me who's sent them, so I know who it's actually come from. And that enables me then to go back to Wes and say, hey, Wes, thanks very much. Adrian called me today. Appreciate that you felt that I was able to help them, and provide him with some feedback within the parameters of privacy.
Yes.
So I would always, again, make sure that I'm letting my new client know.
Yep.
I'm going to go back and let Liz know, thank him for it,
yes.
And just give an outline of what we covered off. Is that okay? That has always held me in good stead, and that has always ensured that I get more and more and more referrals.
It also helps if you sell a product or service which has like a cooling off as well. So if you have a product that has a cooling off, you ring the referral, you get them an appointment, you then ring the person who refers, say, look, I want to thank you so much. I want to take you out for dinner. Just spoke with Adrian. He can't wait to catch up. So what that also does is mean that they're probably not going to cancel, because of the fact that the referral is already intimated that they're going to love the product or service as well. So if you're selling a product that has a call off, it's also another great tactic. I guess you can use it to reduce rescission.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what's happened in this instance of mine. By the time the client has got to me, my referral partner, that's what we call them, has already done the sales work for me. By the time the client has got to me, it's simply, so-and-so has said that you are the best person to speak to about XYZ. Is that right? Yes, it is. What's your process? How much do I have to pay? They in most cases, they've already told them how much it costs.
Everything's done.
So everything's done. It works a treat. So if you nail that piece, it will pay you time and time and time again.
Yeah. And then you then go back, find the dominant buying motive, create a bit of a problem, and then there'll be new clients straight away.
Right.
Yeah.
So we've covered lots today, and I think we've definitely nailed how to do this without being sleazy. Sales is not a dirty word. It is, and I always try to look at it in the view of helping somebody. If my intentions are right and I am truly about helping that person be better, have a better business, whatever it is, then it takes the sting out of the sale anyway. It becomes nice and easy. And say, clients more often than not will say, well, how do we get started? How do I work with you?
Yeah, 100%. And that's the outcome you're always looking for, where they're asking you, okay, so let's get started. When can we start? Today, next week, whatever it is. You just bring the forms out, whatever you have, and the process becomes seamless.
Well, look, thank you so much for your time today, Wes. It's been super having you on the show. And I hope to have you back again sometime soon. And I know that
honestly is the tip of the iceberg. There is so much information out there that we can share. So
yeah, we've got sort of a condensed amount of time to get enough information. But I know that what we've talked about today has been extremely useful for our viewers. I'm sure of that. Guys, let us know in the chat box if it has been. Give us a thumbs up, or give us some props with the little hands that you see on the screen. Right-hand corner, we'll know that we've done a good job. And we'll be back again tomorrow. I've got another very special guest by the name of Lynn Stockdale. Now, Lynn is a fashion specialist, and she's got a really, really interesting topic to talk about tomorrow, but really how to present ourselves in a way that is uniquely you, and again, along the lines of sales, because if you get that piece wrong too, if you turn up to a meeting dressed inappropriately, it can be curtains before you even start. Yeah. So join me again tomorrow at 11:30. Same channel. You can go to my Facebook page. So The Consultants Vault. I'll type it in the on Consultants Vault on Facebook. You'll find me there, and there will be a link to tomorrow's blab. The other thing that you'll find if you are a coach or a consultant, we also have a Facebook group full of, I was going to say, amazing consultants and coaches who are extremely supportive. We work collaboratively, and we help one another to be the best possible coach and or consultant that we can be. So if you are interested in joining a community that has those as their values, then come on over to Facebook. You'll find us, it's called Consultants on a Mission. Again, I'll type that in, Consultants on a Mission. That is the group. You are more than welcome to join us. I'll accept you into the group as long as you are an upbeat, positive person and are prepared to live by our values, then you are more than welcome. But that's where you'll find a whole group of really motivated consultants and coaches who are on a mission. So thank you so much today, guys, for joining me. My name's Tracy Wilson. I've been joined by my very special guest, Wes York from Elite Sales Club. And we'll be back here tomorrow, as I said, and you've been watching Inside the Vault. We'll see you again next time. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.